Hi, y'all. Welcome to the table, where we embark on a journey through the mysterious world of cryptids with a panel of notable researchers in the cryptid universe. Today, we're going to start by talking about the types of Bigfoot. So pull your chair up to the table and let's get started. So, before we get into the types, what's your initial thoughts on the idea of having multiple?
There are enough eyewitnesses to confirm this, in my view.
One of the things that I've learned in William and Stephen's research area and going through the countless photographs that they've accumulated is there are several different types, and it's quite amazing to see how different that some of them appear.
Mm-hmm. And one thing about ours there, what we base most of our classification on tends to be actually just on our visuals, what we see as far as the characteristics and things like that. There's actually other researchers who've given the opinion that there actually may be more than four kinds, which may be true. Or we have a real dearth of not having as much DNA evidence as what we would like, but we got enough eyewitness people there. Folks, there's no such thing as mass hysteria, having the same kind of dream. I've been married to my wife for 43 years, sleeping beside her that long. And she and I have never had the same dream, much less the same kind of hysteria. And so the people that say that kind of stuff, that's a bunch of bull. And then you can talk with Duke there. Like I said, I've been pleasure to be a guest on his show and to meet some of the other people he's had on there. And they're going to tell you, I think, the same thing. He's got some really, really good researchers. Chuck, like I said, I searched out Chuck there at the very first ATABI Bigfoot conference that I attended, and was just so thrilled to meet somebody that had the experience and knowledge they have. So again, like I said, a lot of ours is based on what we know, and what I'm going to try to comment on is things that I've seen. I've actually seen the patty type. I've got the big cone type. I've actually seen the Gugway type that has the snout. I've actually seen the chimpanzee type. Over there, me and Stephen were actually out in the field, and then we're getting pictures on my stealth cam there that's going back to our phone, and they're already back out in the middle of the field, and they look like chimps. And then too, the kind that we have some down here like this. We call them a devil monkey, but it's almost like a baboon. They got more of a baboon type snout, more of a baboon type head. Elongate. They appear to be about 6 foot tall. So those are something that I can actually, if somebody was calling me right now from Zimbabwe and say, Will, can you send me one of these pictures? I can actually send you pictures of either one of these four right here that I've actually seen and recorded on camera, as well as, for the eye save me and Stephen Daniel. I've sent them and shared them with Duke, and Duke has verified that what we have there is something that he's come across before there. And Chuck, man, there's no telling what he's seen up in those mountains of Oklahoma. I said, Chuck was a guy I look forward to meeting for a long time. Again, very glad to be here with this distinguished panel, folks. If you don't really appreciate the knowledge that you've got right here, please rethink that, because these guys here are sharp, very sharp.
Nice. Let's talk about the patty type.
Yeah, for me, patty, part of the information on the patty is some of the work that M.K. Davis has actually done on it. The fact that the muscles coming off of her head going down to her neck are different from what it is on a human.
Yeah.
That's mostly what we have in this area that William and I are in, is the one with the conical shaped head of that type.
Do you find them less aggressive than some of the other ones that you see? You see all of them in your area, don't you?
Yes.
You've seen all of them, yeah.
Yes, and as far as me, I've been scared, but it wasn't because of what they did to me. It was my own fear. Is what it was.
Duke, do you have any offers on Patty?
Honestly, when this whole thing got started with typing typecasting Bigfoot. You have to be very careful with your terminology and how you're defining things. And this
Okay.
actually started out with Wes Germer from Sasquatch Chronicles, who was taking in tons of reports, noticed there's variations, and tried to assign regional variant numbers to them, which over my subsequent research since that time period, I've come to believe that's absolutely not valid. And
So
I
the 4
don't
types?
know. There's way more than that globally. There's more than that even on the continent. And they're more like tribal members than they are different types. If you took, give you an example, I had a native woman that came up here. She spent a couple months in Montana, and then before she went back home down to Oklahoma, she wanted to go out and do some bigfooting with me. And while we were out there finding track lines, 18-inch tracks, she mentioned that, being pure-blooded native, she's been wandering around here in Montana for a couple months, and she keeps running into the local natives here. And the first thing they ask her is, where are you from? They can tell right away she's not from any local tribes just by how she looks. And that's what I'm trying to point out. They're all Bigfoot, but there's differences because there's localized pockets of them that have been inbreeding for a long time. So the genetic variation isn't that wide. And any of these guys can tell you, the ones that, from a lot of observation, that even in a small family group, there's going to be wide variation within it. So yeah, like generally, most of the ones in the South tend to have the round heads, the ones that people call the type 2s. That's the Sukulu. And then you're out here on the West Coast, you tend to have more of them with the cone heads. Those are the type 1s. But is that universal? Absolutely not, because they travel around. When Kevin Lang was down in Arkansas, he had a 10-foot female with a cone head hanging out behind his property. And he went, what the hell? All of them down here got round heads, and there ain't no females down here that are 10 feet tall. Where the hell that would come from? It turned out that she had taken a mate from down there, and she was originally from up in the back west, probably up in Idaho. So yeah, they do mix, and I've gotten pictures of ones up here that don't have cone heads. And as far as the size thing goes, that varies widely also. Leo Frank, I had him on last weekend, and he thinks that the ones over in his area probably max out at around 8 feet tall because he hasn't found any tracks or anything to indicate that they get any bigger. And he might be right. And some areas they get a lot bigger than that. Like where I live, they get a lot bigger than that. So 10 feet is nowhere near the size that they max out at.
How big have you seen them, or the reports, maybe?
Well, Glag, who Kevin saw firsthand when he had reached adult size, is his estimate 14.5 feet, and he left a 26.5-inch track.
So do y'all have any more encounters with Glag, or is he around, or?
No. Nope. We got a couple of psychics that keep track of him for us, and that's about it. About every 6 months, we have one of them contact him, see how he's doing, say hi, and
that's awesome.
Avoid humans.
Love that.
He knows enough to do that.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because that's kind of where I was wanting. I think there's more than 4 too. I agree, and I'm glad you said that. Thank you.
Well, every country has their own name for them. Some countries have multiple names for them. In Russia, you've got the Almasty, the Mink, what else? The Leshy. It all depends on what part of Russia you're in. And all of the descriptions are similar, but there tends to be regional variation, which again leads toward, there's sub-varieties. They're, like local population. Like just think of a huge tribe.
Yeah.
Like the tribes of natives we used to have in North America. You could look at one of them and tell them pretty much what tribe they were from. And it's the same thing with these guys because, a certain group of them will be living in one area and predominantly they'll look that certain way. And as far as things like a Gugwe or anything, I don't believe that they're any type of Bigfoot. I don't think they're even related.
Do you not?
So when I first
go ahead, Daniel.
When I first got started in all this, because Patty was the most well-known poster of Bigfoot, that's the image that I had in my head of what they must all look like. And it wasn't until I got down into the research area with William and Stephen and started seeing the different photographs of the different types of creatures and cryptids that were in their research area that I understood. Oh my goodness, there are more different types of Bigfoot than I thought. And also how Duke mentions possible genetic variations due to inbreeding among clans, and that I believe that's a real reality as well.
As far as the devil monkey thing goes, they're far from ubiquitous. There's only certain parts of the country where you run into them. And again, I don't think they're a type of Bigfoot. That's some other kind of cryptid primate.
Yeah, and that's and with William and I can ever make it to the dark woods and come out with some pictures like we have at Ground Zero, then we may have more proof of that, Duke, according to a track that William found.
Yeah.
How big are those?
Yeah, and they vary in size too. Their KD, they vary in size as well. I think a lot of times it just depends on which individual animal it could be. But then too, like I said, there could be some inbreeding in there that actually lends to a genetic change that makes the footprints, either larger or smaller.
Yeah.
Me and Stephen were there one day and had a tree knocking contest for 30 minutes with one of them up there on the bank of a river. But this one actually had a splay on his toe. You can see my finger right there. It's actually a splay, like what a ape does. I've never seen that, and we're not supposed to have any at all in North America. We don't know, but then you can see the top of the fingers up there like that right there. So there's a variance right there that we have, and this devil monkey, like Duke said, it's not just all over the place right there. You've got some down there in South Louisiana that have been seen, documented, and possibly even killed. Like I said, and they're just totally different. Even from between Sulphur River and one of mine, Stephen's other research areas, is probably about 75 miles. And in that 75 miles, there's a difference between those that occur around Boggy Creek. Everybody's heard of Boggy Creek, the legend Boggy Creek. And there's actually a difference in them in the way they look as far as for what Stephen and I have whenever we approach right there on the boundaries of the Ouachita Mountains. And they're both just down here around Sulphur River. They got the cone heads. They've got more of that gorilla type face, or just big robust shoulders, skinny waistline, big butts and legs and everything like that. And then once you get up there around the mountains up there, when me and Daniel were there a couple of years ago, we actually got a picture of one standing near a tree. And I went back a couple of days later with a meter stick and measured this one at 10.5 foot tall, based on if he was standing up, if he was even slouched at 10.5 foot, if he was, standing up straight, he might have been bigger than that. And then we got a picture of Blackie. Blackie's about 10 foot tall. Got a picture of him earlier this year. Blackie's a whopper. He's got 5 foot shoulders. And man, that's big. And he's actually growing. I've seen him several times. So again, those variances, we just can't tell until we get more about DNA. But that's what all the guys here that we have, not just us that are here, but the field researchers, the boots on the ground. I went with Duke to Montana one time. Oh my gosh, man, just the size of the trees, the tree structures that they make, it was really impressive. I mean, colossal doesn't even cover it. Colossal is the same root word of Colosseum, which means just huge. And some of the trees, and then I had to step over some that the ones they pushed over there in the forest were actually up to my waist, and get up and ride them like a horse, and then hope I didn't fall over the other way. So it's very, very different. But around here, like I said, even within 75 miles, there's a different variant within the way they look and the way they do. And let me say one thing too about Patty, folks. If you get a chance, go through. There's a show there. I don't normally recommend some TV shows, but there's one called The Truth Is Out There, and they've redone the Patty thing. There was I don't know the man's name, but 2 or 3 scientists, and then Bill Munns, who used to be a costume guy in there. Bill's very, very knowledgeable as well. And so they've done it from 3 different angles and muted and forged these films together. You can actually see things on Patty that you couldn't see before. And so if y'all get a chance to watch that, it's on the out there, whether you believe it or not. And you can see the Patty is, I talked to MK Davis, as we said, MK, probably the foremost researcher there in as far as Patty and out there on Bluff Creek and everything else like that. And the information that he had, and I have one there where the bottom of her feet was white. And I said, MK, that looks kind of funny. I'm not sure about that. He goes, real simple. He said they were building a roadbed through there. That's simply limestone on her feet. So again, we have men like what we got here and others that we get to share information with. Boy, that really helps too. So, and most of the people now, thank goodness, thanks to shows like Duke's they're actually sharing information rather than everybody trying to keep it quiet and get the what we call the 15 minutes of fame or the $1 million picture. Thanks to shows like that, people are starting to share information more. And he's got some great guys. Y'all go watch his show. Got some from Canada. Got Leo Franks over there. We got a man there from Germany. They're all getting pictures. They're worth watching. And you'll see that it's not just a local phenomena that we have here in America, but that they're worldwide. And that tends to really, when you broaden it to, they are a universal animal. Or animal being, not being. I'm saying animal is animal, mineral, vegetable, or gas. Being, quote, animal, unquote.
Yep, they're critters. And, there's a bunch of people out there that kind of got mad at me initially for doing what I do because they had that thing in their head that they're going to be the guy to get the next Patterson-Gimlin film. Yeah. And don't you dare share any secrets about Bigfoot and how to get near them, you dirty, stinking traitor. And to all of them, I'd just like to say,
first time I met Chuck up there, like I said, at Honeby, man, Chuck shared information with me. I'd been researching a long time. I'd actually had several encounters, but I just didn't have really anybody that I could talk to. And I'd heard Chuck's show by accident and got to speak with him. I'm like, yes, man, I'm not the Lone Ranger. I've got somebody here I can share this with. And the insights he brought to me on that right there, not only confirmed what I got, but actually confirmed my resolution to keep doing what I was doing. I knew I wasn't crazy. Now, everybody else didn't know that. But nevertheless, but to get guys, like that do, and like I said, MK, some of these other researchers, and they're not going to get that $1 million picture. Daniel and I were talking the other day and talked about 15 minutes of fame. Like I told you the other night, KD, 12 of those 15 minutes are ridicule. Who wants that?
Yeah.
I mean, and so.
Oh yeah.
If you don't get ridiculed, then you don't have any trolls to counterattack. So,
yeah, I'll give them somebody else to talk about for a while.
Yeah.
So talking about the chimp, so Bigfoot 411 says that the second type is the chimp. Do you think that that's the devil monkey?
He's talking about the southern wood buggers that generally have the round heads.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, the round heads. I was looking for a picture. I have a picture of one, but I don't think I have it in my photo album on this phone. But it has a round head, basically just like ours.
Yeah. Christy, who's not, sorry to cut you out for a second, but just to back you up there, Christy, who's not with us tonight, gets to interact with a group of them down in Louisiana all the time. And they're the local, what we would call type 2 Sukaloo tribe, and they have round heads. They have one that hangs around with them who's got the big sagittal crest, cone head, and he ain't from there. And they have another one that hangs around with them that's from Florida. And you could tell the difference between him and them, too. He's more bulky. He's got a lot of extra fur on him. He's not quite so smart, and he stinks really bad. That's a skunk ape.
That's a skunk ape, yeah.
And that's something I would like to go ahead and address about how hairy they are sometimes in the South. And you would think that all the extra hair would be a bad thing for them. But honestly, I can tell you from a guy that I used to work with, he used to keep a beard down to about the middle of his chest. And he used to cut logs. And he always had the long beard. He always wore a long sleeve blue jean shirt. It didn't matter what time of year it was. If it was 100 degrees outside, he had on a long blue jean shirt. And he told me one time that he decided to go ahead and cut his beard off one summer. He said he liked to burn up before it grew back.
Wow.
So, I mean, you sweat and it holds the sweat in. You catch a breeze and you cool
Got
off.
some air conditioner.
Yeah.
Got some air.
When you're talking about the possible chimp type, William actually has a really, really good photo of a track comparison, and I just happened to find it. I'm going to try to hold it up to the camera and see if you can see it, see how effective this might be. But
Oh my, yeah.
Was that track, William, 17 inches?
18 inches, and 9.5 across there, I think, right across at the base of the toes right there.
And that's from the area that we call the Dark Woods.
Yeah, exactly right.
From the very first time we ever went to the Dark Woods, I've never heard more tree knocks in any other place, Arkansas or Oklahoma, either one, than what they have in the Dark Woods. They'll do tree knocks while it's still daylight.
Yeah.
2 or 3 hours, 3 or 4 hours before it even gets dark, they'll do tree knocks.
That's different.
Yeah.
It is here, yeah.
there's something different about those in that area than what there is in Ground Zero or those in Falk.
Yep.
They're
Again, with that divergent hallux, that does not comport to normal Sasquatch tracks as we find them everywhere else on the continent. And I know there's another subvariety group up in northeastern Nebraska, the Sitonga tribe that are up there. And about 30% of them have tusks coming up out of their lower jaws. And you don't hear that description of Bigfoot anywhere else on the continent.
right.
So again, there's these little subvariety groups in different places that are, some of them are pretty different than the other ones that are near them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard that. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Yeah.
There's been some reports of the same thing up in Alaska, isn't there, Duke?
Well, the reports from Alaska, the only 2 or 3 that I've heard where they were reporting tusks, they were talking about mountain giants, which are, you know, tremendously, gigantically huge. They're literally giant size, and could be the same thing as what the Iroquois Confederation were calling the Janoskwa, the stone giants, because they were describing them as, you know, like 15 feet tall plus. They get really, really big.
Right.
You know, and I heard recently from a friend of mine there. He's a Native American, and we talk about it quite often. He said, we'll talk about the tux thing. He said, I have a man here that's in my tribe said he saw one that was coming up around where their campsite was at night, and said whenever it opened its mouth to growl, he said whenever it did, he said on the inside you could see 2 tusks pop out just like that. You know, when you see a snake, those fangs drop down, you know, as far as that goes. And so, and he said you can see 2 tusks coming out of the back of the jaw right there. And then when it shut it went back in, almost like it has like a crocodile or an alligator. One of those has where the teeth go right inside and the others go to the outside. But he said this man that's in his tribe there, he said I trust him infinitely. He said the thing had the tusk, as Duke said, that comes out there. And I haven't experienced that yet. I've got some pictures there. I've got pictures of my camera actually inside Bigfoot's mouth. I've actually got I really do.
I'm sorry. I was just talking about this to somebody yesterday, and they're like, what's the best close-up Bigfoot shot ever? And I said, a shot of inside of Bigfoot's mouth from inside of Bigfoot's mouth, and then a shot looking out from the inside of his mouth from inside of Bigfoot's mouth. And William got both of those.
And Stephen was there with me when I found him, you know, and we're just sitting, all we can do is just start laughing at first and then start looking around like, oh crap, this thing's still around. But it is to see that right there, and it's just amazing. And then we got one picture there that I think probably is maybe dogman teeth or something, another, whatever the variant is right there. Or it could be part of the Janoskwa type, or the ones that have but anyway, all the teeth are canine teeth. There's a lot of the ones that we got, the one that's inside his mouth that I've gotten right there, they're block teeth right here in front, little space, and then a little smaller canines, not like what a baboon has real far down. But there's out here, like I said, it's totally different. They're all canine teeth. So again, that's something that hopefully we get to learn more about. But folks, it's something that I wasn't believing in until all of a sudden I started, you know, getting out in the woods and doing the boots on the ground research. Man, I've never been so the education I've gotten is just, it's been worth every penny to me. But so that's what I can get to share with everybody else. Until, you know, having, you know, guys like all you guys right there that able to bounce this off with. So, yeah, well, man, so and so, you know, had this same situation here. So I know what I'm talking about is true, and that's what we're trying to share with everybody here tonight. It's true. It's not some pipe dream. They say, well, it's folklore. Not all folklore means it's false. Folklore is just something of legend that's been carried around through the time. Mm-hmm. Most of our early ancient history was folklore, spread by word of mouth rather than you know, documented stuff. Right. But that doesn't mean it's not real.
Yeah, it's an oral history is what it is.
Yep. Myths don't leave tracks. Legends leave tracks. Myths don't leave tracks.
I agree.
William, is this one of the teeth pictures that you're referencing?
That's it right there. Okay, folks.
That
right
is
there,
crazy.
You can ask Stephen. I'm writing about this. I'm writing a new book here, and I'm documenting kind of how this went. And so whenever I would go up there and look, I said, Stephen, he's picking up my camera. This is not in the exact same place that I placed it. So finally we put underneath there, we put some sticks and pointed it in the same direction as what the lens is. I don't know if y'all can see me like this right here. So here's the stick and here's the lens. And then when we come back, it would be offset like that, proving that we knew. So we were trying to get the DNA. Well, coincidentally, whenever he set it down, this time he set it down sideways. So we've got a picture of that and couldn't figure out what the heck it was. So my wife I think she calls it imported it onto her tablet. And so I knew there was something about it, and I never delete a picture because you can't never tell when you go back later on. So I went in there and I had it on her tablet. I go into the bathroom, I turned out the lights, and coincidentally I had just placed it in just the right direction. And so whenever I took a picture of it with a high def camera, all of a sudden I see them teeth, man, my eyeballs get as big as saucers. I'm like, oh my gosh, look at this. And the funny part about it, my son is a dentist, and so whenever I showed it to him sideways, he goes, yeah, that might be Bigfoot stuff. And turned it right side up, and he goes, oh my gosh, so proving, it was teeth there. So
yeah, and that picture, that's the only picture we have that might possibly confirm what I saw one night. I saw a white one.
What'd you
Daniel,
say?
do you have the other picture where it's the Bigfoot's biting down on the camera and it's taking a picture from inside of his mouth looking out, and you can see there's another one in the dark in front of him. You can see its eyes when he bites down on the camera and takes a picture. What I'd like to point out about those two amazing pictures, and they are freaking amazing. How big does your mouth have to be to have a whole game cam in it?
Exactly. This game camera here is about 7.5 inches by about almost 4 inches. He's got the whole thing in his mouth, So, like Duke said, how big does it have to be? Well, I'm sure that he got more in there had he wanted to, but and he did that on a routine basis. Every time that we would put it out there, he would bite the dog on camera. I've lost 4 of them now to Bigfoot, and like I said, every one of them had scars from the Bigfoot teeth and everything. Finally, we got a photo of one about 10.5 foot that had actually just destroyed it. He's got in a series of bushes in front of him. He's got 4 other smaller Bigfoot, but this guy was also taking and turning our cameras upside down. And Stephen goes, man, he's torn your camera up. Just leave it as a dummy camera. I said, sure. We're trying to trick him. And sure enough, then the next time we go up there, and then we've got this big wide Bigfoot right there, and he's walking. He's 20 foot on the other side of the berm. He's still 10 foot tall. What you can see right there, just huge. He's 10.5 or 11 foot, and I promise you, he'll be 1,000 pounds. But that one he let his gluttony make a mistake, and rarely the old ones like that make a mistake. Normally it's the juveniles, but he let his gluttony make a mistake, and we were able to get a very good verifiable picture of him.
So what do you think attracts them to the camera? Is it just they can see it and they're curious, or is it more like the bear with the smell, the what is it, the fiberglass that bears are attracted to?
Yeah, they say the casing tends to smell somewhat like ants. Me and Stephen find we got fire ants down here a whole lot. Y'all got them there in Oklahoma as well. I showed Daniel the fire ants, went to the fire ant bed and actually poked it with a stick. Man, looked like
yes, you did, and I couldn't get away faster.
But me and Stephen have found the tracks there actually in the fire ant beds where and I've got a handprint there of one down here in Texarkana, a smaller juvenile that's actually been eating them fire ants. You can see the dead ants down there, but you've got his hand right there, just like that. So they are, man. There's just opportunistic, but that just shows how smart that they really are. You can look at some of the videos of even some of the apes over in Africa, and they'll take sticks and put it in those we call them chicken chokers around here and there, and then let the ants cruise up, and man, they got chocolate covered ants. We've heard of that being a delicacy. Well, I'm gonna have to take y'all's word for it because I'm not gonna do it.
So Stephen, tell me about your story of that picture that Daniel just showed.
Well, that, like I said a minute ago, that's the only picture we have that might confirm the fact that I saw a white one night. What it was, I had gone, yeah, you can put that away.
He doesn't like it.
I still get chills on that one. Thinking about it, I had gone out there one night. The only light that I had with me was equivalent to a flashlight on your cell phone. That was the only light I had with me, and I had parked out there before I ever opened the truck door to go put treats out. I had already got killed, and I was already spooked, and I was just thinking that I just had an overactive imagination. And just go ahead and do what you're out here to do. Put the little fun-sized treats out. So I walked on out there. It was already dark when I got there, and I got the first one out, and my skin was crawling. I just stay there. And I got the first treat out, and I turned on that light I had, which is, like I said, equal to a cell phone light. I turned the light on, and there's a white one standing about Basically, about 30 steps. If you were on the shoulder of the road on one side of a 2-lane highway, it would have been on the other shoulder of the road. That's how close we were. I turned my light back off for what good that did. And I went to fumbling around with another treat, and I couldn't get it open. I was pretty well shook up. I turned the light on again to make sure that I really saw what I thought I was seeing. And I dropped the treat, and I left. And I called William that night. Whenever I got back in the truck, headed out, I called William because it shook me up. It was probably 45 minutes to an hour before I finally calmed down after talking to him for that time. I mean, it really shook me. And next time William and I were there together, I showed him where I was standing and where the Bigfoot was standing, and William stopped short of telling me that I was stupid. So.
And the funny thing is, I shared on Duke's show this year when I was on there. We've got some of the Bigfoot down here. The babies, as juveniles, up to about 3 foot tall, they're solid white. And I don't know if they changed color after that. I finally got a picture of the one I think that Stephen had there that looked white, and it's an adult. He has a little gray on his face, but all the outlining, like on mine right here, the other hair is white on there. And then one of the first pictures we got there back in March in 2018, and there is a little white one that's holding on to evidently one of the mother's hands, and right next to him is one that's standing there just looking, and this one is brown, almost has the green tint like the algae thing that sometimes you read about that there. But so we got the white ones, and they tend to later on maybe even more. I've made the distinction before that a polar bear hair is clear, but it shows up as white to us. So if this is something that's different, I can't say that for sure, till we get the DNA, but I can tell you for a fact, like I said, there's the ones I shared with Duke this year. There's 2 of them walking by I've got a camera that's stuck in a hauled out log made for me by a friend named Jim Owenby, one of the greatest tools that we have up there right now. And so whenever they come by, it's early in the morning. There's another little brown one that's probably about this tall. Looks like maybe, a juvenile from a different year class. But here they are, and they're sitting there looking at the camera. And this one has got 3 fingers stuck up there in front of the camera, trying to keep the light from going in his eyes. So it could be something that's something that we don't know. But I do know that what Stephen's telling you, when it sounds crazy, but it's actually the truth.
Yeah. Did you just had that feeling? Did it show any kind of aggression, or was it just your feeling?
No, that was just being scared. That was all me. I mean, it never growled at me. It never made a move toward me. It just stood still beside a small pine tree.
Was it still there when you turned the light back on?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And you were gone.
It didn't move, and I mean that's not uncommon for the Bigfoot around here. Sometimes it will move, but the picture of the round-headed one that I have, I was about 100 yards away from it when I spotted it, and I took the pictures, and I took 15 steps towards it. It never flinched, and I decided it was time for me to leave.
Yeah.
I'm out. I don't know what I'd do. I want to see one so bad, but honestly, what will I do? I have no idea.
Yeah, Stephen's like bad Leroy Brown, baddest man in the whole dang cemetery. He's not, he's not scared at all. Stephen's bigger than I am, but these things, I think some of the ones they've got to know Stephen and I. We've been researching now that one area about 6 years, and one thing that I think that we're finding is they recognize us. Daniel's got some pictures sent to me yesterday. He's up there taking pictures, and there's probably truly 6 or 7 in front of us standing right there. And I'm looking around. We're hearing them moving around. We're hearing the vocalization. I'm looking on the ground. I've got my 45-70 rifle right there. I'm dressed in a chartreuse shirt. Chartreuse is that bright fluorescent green. And or lemon green, and so I'm sitting right there, and there they are right there in front. And because I'm not paying as much attention over there, we didn't have that happen already right there. But there they are right there in front of us. But not a ounce of aggression was sent in that way towards mine in his direction. And like I said, Daniel, he's got the touch, but he's got every time he comes down, he gets at least 2 or 3 good pictures, So. And so these are really good. I think I shared them. I may even shared some of them with you all yesterday there on this deal there. But there's actually so again once they get to know you, the aggression. I've got that one picture of Steven somewhere, that white one. I'll have to just send you all. Maybe next time we do a show, we can put that on there. But you can see, and he's hiding behind a tree, just kind of looking around like that right there, which is classic. What we call classic Bigfoot behavior.
Yeah.
And Stephen, William, and Duke are very good at photo analysis and being able to find those cryptids that are in the backgrounds. They're all three experts at it.
Duke, tell us, man, how you look for them like there, because you're getting a lot of pictures here lately. How you find those pictures in there? You're not looking for the whole Bigfoot body, are you?
Hell no, you're never going to see that because it's so rare that they'll even leave an outline a part of their body for you to spot. Look for eyeballs. If they're watching you, there's an eyeball. Look for the eyeballs. Same thing you do if you're hunting rabbits in the winter or something. They're white too. You look at that black eyeball.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that people want to think that, if they're looking at you, it's going to be like this. No, they can always at some weird angle looking at you out of the corner of their eye or something like that. So a lot of what you look for is just hair and then eyeballs.
I know Chuck's had a lot of encounters and visions. Chuck, what is it you look for, man, whenever you're in there looking for Bigfoot or you're spotting your Bigfoot in those woods? Because the Oklahoma woods are thick up there in those mountains.
There are, and I don't know how to put the way things happen with me. I just go out there, take my camera, and there's been sometimes when I've just felt the urge to pull out my camera and start taking pictures, and I may not see anything, and I've taken a lot of pictures like that, but every once in a while I'll catch something, and I don't know if it's luck. There's been other photos where I've actually seen them there and actually started taking pictures. So it kind of comes and goes in two different situations.
Yeah, you had a really good picture from the LBL a few years ago.
Yeah,
he does.
Really good.
Laying under a bush.
Yeah.
And he's kind of covered up in a bush. And the picture that I got, he's laying there and he's looking at me, and you can actually see the color of his eye on one side of his face, and that was a pretty impressive photo that I got there.
Yeah.
That's how I get a lot of my stuff. It's just that I'm in an area where it's, a lot of Bigfoot, and you wander around there for a while, and it's either just you or you and plus one other person. Right. So they'll follow you around. Yeah. And then when you get that creepy feeling that they're watching you, whip the camera out, do a slow pan. If you do see them, don't pretend you see them. Don't point the camera directly at them, or they'll screw with it, and you'll get CEI, and then you get a whole lot of nothing on the camera.
Yeah. I have a creek that's about a mile down the road from me, and I had 3 people from town. They all know that I'm into this kind of stuff, and they had 3 people come to me and said, "Hey, we're seeing monkeys on the creek," and I'm and I'm like, no, you ain't seeing monkeys. I said, I know what you're looking for, but I know what you're looking at, but they're not monkeys. We don't have monkeys in Oklahoma, and I started driving back and forth down there and saw one off in a big old pile of brush, and I took the picture. And about 2 or 3 days later, about 2 o'clock in the morning to 3 o'clock in the morning, I had a big slap on the side of my house because I think he followed me.
Come to my house, I'm going to go to yours.
Yeah,
exactly. They do that.
Yeah, I believe it.
Don't forget, Scott Carpenter got all freaked out when he had the dog man follow him back to his house. And, if you don't quit walking through their territory and irritating them all the time. And secondly, when you're walking through the territory, irritating them, don't have a pocket full of Milk-Bone brand dog biscuits either. And then maybe they won't follow you home.
We got something really interesting up there. Me and Daniel went down there this year. That was after we got that big old picture of Blackie with 5-foot shoulders. And I said, Daniel, I'm going to show you something real funny. I said, we got what we call Snickers Trail here. He goes, what is that?
Yes.
Well, sure enough, go up there and I said, get ready. So anyway, he gets his camera and everything. We go walk there and where we bait these Bigfoot up with Snickers. We don't even peel the camera, the paper up of them anymore, man. You don't need to, man. They're like, you caused me to miss all that chocolate that you left on the wrapper. Just leave it on there. And so we're walking through the woods and said, look here, Daniel, and we got so many Snickers papers there from the little bite-sized Snickers where they're the forest's worst litter bug, that is. But it's so cool because you can follow what trail they're taking in and out of there, and sure enough, you're going to, especially right now, Stephen, I don't know how since he's been up here, but you can see they've got it beat down so much it's almost just a bare ground. So really it's really interesting to see something like that, you know, and the way they perceive that. But it's such an amazing thing to be able to interact with these beings, and thank goodness so far they have all been they haven't been aggressive or anything. I've had two that have been aggressive. I take that back. I had two there. I did one show with Travel Channel a couple of years ago and did that, but that was one like Duke was talking about. I had a female over and she kept messing with me. She kept throwing pine cones at first, then throwing pieces of stick, and then every now and then you'd have the rocks come by, and then she got mad because I wouldn't leave, and I knew there had to be something wrong while she was acting as aggressive as she was, and so I'd start peeking out like that to try to see behind a tree. Well, I guess she'd see my head coming back, she'd go. So I had my sister's birthday party that was on Halloween, I think on 2018. So I had to leave for that, and I'm like, well, shucks. So anyway, I peeked around again, like I said, and you could just, you could hear her over there, and then she just huffing a little bit. So whenever I went to walk away, I'm like, I'm gonna trick you. So as I went, I just put my phone right here on my shoulder like this, facing backwards, and then whenever I got just a little bit away, just took a click. And like I said, then whenever it was 2 or 3 days before I remembered I had it on there, had some things going. Well, whenever I got home and finally remembered it and looked at it, and there she is, and there's Mama right there, right here in the middle of her chest, and you can see the baby's face right there. And that was one of the reasons she was so aggressive, I feel like, because I wasn't going to leave. I'm kind of stubborn or kind of stupid, whichever one whichever one you want to classify that is. But you forget when you get so into seeing these things that you're looking for them. You tend to forget basic reasoning there. But anyway, so I was able to get her picture, like I said, and showed that on Travel Channel, and you can see that Mama with that baby's face, right there, and it was all because of she gave herself away. She just couldn't, being that Mama instinct. She's like, "You're going to get out of here," almost like a policeman asking for your ID. You're going to ID. Well, she had my ID, but she was about determined I was going to get out of there, and I did. I thought, okay, if she's going to start this huffing and growling, it's time to leave. So I did. So that's really but you can see that as well. Like I said, I think I shared that on Duke's show. You can also see it on the show called These Woods Are Haunted that I did right there, and it's really a good picture. And when you see it live, as Duke said about the manipulating your cameras and stuff with the interference, if it's pointed right to them, they're going to zap, what we call zapping it. And I know Duke's got more pictures of that he's seen than I have, but they're always electronically interfered with.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've got one up there from a little town up there from my buddy's land. And all of a sudden, every picture is right side up. It's just as clear as it can be. Then the next picture you've got a picture of a Bigfoot standing there, and it's all fuzzy. Then every picture I get after that is upside down on this camera. So you can't help but just be fascinated by what made him decide that was a good thing to do. Well, I'm glad he did, because at least he let me know, I'm dealing with Bigfoot, because you can see him standing right there. So,
speaking of the CEI, when William was up here camping with me, apparently they decided to erase most of everything that was on his camera.
Sure did.
One of the few things that he got was when we had gone out to show him where all these just ginormous, titanic, colossal structures were, and me and Mike decided we wanted to walk out further into the woods and recon this area. And so I told William and Eric, you guys just follow this ridge line straight until it goes down to the swamp, and then take a left turn, go across that little bog, and you'll be right back in camp. You can't get lost. So William was a little dubious, but he figured, yeah, I can do that. Eric, I figured he'd get hopelessly lost, so he had to stay with William. So as they're walking back, apparently William takes some pictures. And some of my friends apparently were following them back to make sure that they made it back again, because he got a picture of one of them along the way. But what I really wanted to bring up, and by the way, was that a round-headed one or a coney? I think he was round-headed, wasn't he?
Oh,
Your sound's off, Will.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, mute went off there. They've got noggins look like globes that you see the teachers used to have on their desk in grade school, man. They've got massive heads like that,
Yeah.
So it appeared to be a round-headed one up there, but it was a Bigfoot, no doubt about it. I saw him moving. when I got the picture and took it, I think, of course, he steps behind a tree, and like I said, the rocks are. If you've never been to Montana, the rocks are the size of houses, the size of small houses, and the trees are just bigger than that. He's got a picture of a structure there. You can look up into, and the crossing of the teepee structure is 60 feet up there. It's more than I could imagine. We get that here, but we don't get big for a Bigfoot structure around here. Is probably 10 to 12 foot where the crossing point will be at the most. I said his will be 60 feet tall. So
it's scary when you're standing there looking at him. You're like, how big do they have to be to build something like this? Each one of these logs weighs like 3 tons or more, and they're moving them around.
That's right.
Oh my God. But the part I wanted to bring up about that is after we got back that night, some of the other guys that were with had to leave.
Yeah.
And it was me and William and my research buddy Michael that were still there. And it got dark. And then after dark, we could hear them sneaking up on camp. There was a minimum of 5 of them.
That's
we
right.
could hear 2 places across the road from us and 3 places back behind us across the river. So there's minimum 5. And William's not used to camping out, and he doesn't really know what to expect. So he's kind of a little bit concerned about this. He's, hey, Duke, are you hearing this? And I go, oh, yeah, hold on. And I turn around and I go, hey, guys. And I turn back and I go, that should take care of it. And he's looking at me like, you're completely crazy. What have I got myself into? Oh, my God, we're going to get massacred. And then, so me and Mike just go back to talking. We're used to doing this. And after about 3-4 minutes, William goes, they quit making noise. I said, yeah, the only reason they're making noise is because they wanted to let us know they were coming up on camp.
Yeah.
And they didn't want to surprise us because, like whipping out guns and shooting randomly into the woods sort of shit. But if they're making some noise when they're coming up, we know it's them. And as soon as we go, hey, guys, oh, they know we're here. Okay, we don't have to make any more noise. Now we're close enough we can hear whatever dumb stories they're telling and the jokes that they're whipping out here tonight and get our free entertainment out of it, which is really what they're up to.
And that's another factor like Duke's talking about. If I would have hollered, hey, guys, I don't think they'd have done anything. I think it was voice recognition from him because it's a place he camps all the time. Yeah. And all of a sudden you hollered, and then they're just like, okay, that's Duke, man. We know him well. Me and Stephen have him down there, recognize us. Daniel, will admit to, I know Chuck will admit to that right there. They just, it sounds stupid, but we're their entertainment. But they do recognize us as being in it, plain and simple. Whether it's facial, people say, well, I never forget a face, but I'd like to make an exception for you, something like that. But Bigfoot doesn't forget. Bigfoot has got that memory. Yeah, it's incredible.
And we got, like William and Stephen down there, they've got kind of a game playing interaction with their guys because they're trying to leave, here, if you can somehow manage to defeat my trickery, you can get away with a Snicker bar for doing it. And if you don't defeat my trickery, I get your picture. And that's part of the game too. So it's all fair, and quit eating my game camera. But up here, the way I interact with them, there's really no game playing involved. It's kind of like, okay, I know you're there. Hey, I'm going to go walk through the woods now. Follow me around so no grizzlies mug me. Thank you. And then when I get ready to leave, I go over to this one gifting spot and I just leave them munchies. So there's no, anticipation that they've got to defeat some trick or trap or something in order to get fed. It's just, hang around with Duke and follow him around for a few days. And then when he leaves, he'll leave you food.
All right.
But as far as I'm concerned, as smart as they are, they can definitely put that together and go, if something happens to him, I don't get free munchies anymore. So I need to keep an eye on this idiot while he's walking around the woods so grizzlies don't mug him.
How far is your gifting spot from, like, people? How far out is it?
It's on the other side of an icy river in the middle of a mountain range.
Nice.
25 miles in from each side, whichever direction you want to drive in from.
That is awesome. That is awesome.
6,000 foot elevation too. Yeah, I've been going up there for, about a decade now. So they've gotten pretty used to me. And some of the other guys that I've had up there with me a bunch of times, they really like them. And oh my God, did they like William? Him and Keith Crabtree are the two that got the best reaction out of anybody that's been up there. They just kind of went, oh, we know that guy. He's awesome. Let's show off. Push a tree over. Make squeaky noises,
I mean, and that's true, man. Keith gets reactions just about everywhere that he goes. But if you know Keith Crabtree, you know why. Not only does he get that response from Bigfoot, but people as well.
He did it with me the first time I ever met him. I couldn't leave him alone. I really couldn't.
He's just a real good guy. He's
Yeah.
real down to earth. What you see is what you get, and if you don't like him, then he'll move on. He's not even going. But having that, but like Duke said, is the reactions that he gets, and then I don't know whether what their deal is with me or not, but I've been very fortunate. Whatever my body aura is that they enjoy being around, I've been very fortunate with that. So it's allowed us to get a lot of pictures, to have a lot of interactions and stuff like that. And and with Stephen, the same way, except for when Stephen hides Snickers bars outside my window at the cabin, and the Bigfoot comes up and sticks up.
That's a great story. That's a great
Oh,
story.
he did all right. Don't think I forgot that.
Well, I have another story with William. William took me Bigfoot hunting in 1988. First time he didn't tell me we were Bigfoot hunting. So we do have another story. It's one of those times we were been at Ground Zero and there really wasn't much going on. So we went north of Ground Zero. We were just driving down the road about 5 miles an hour or so, William. We were just listening and looking. A whistle came from the woods on my side of the truck, and we were hearing all the frogs, all the cicadas, the crickets, everything else that makes noise at night, and it's really, really loud here in the south. And the whistle came from my side of the truck, and for whatever reason, I decided to whistle back at it. The very next thing that happened was everything goes absolutely quiet. Or probably a quarter of a mile?
At least a quarter of a mile. Yep.
Yeah. Now, if that had been on William's side of the truck, I would have stopped to see if William wanted to shake hands or exchange how do you do's and stuff like that. But since it was on my side of the truck, I decided to keep moving along.
And that would have been when you'd have found me sitting in Stephen's lap if the game wardens would have drawn up and said, okay, what have we got going on right here? So, but it was, I got as quiet as a tomb. You've heard me say that, but it got as quiet as a tomb. There was nothing. You didn't get a cricket. You didn't get a cicada. You didn't get a mosquito. Even the mosquitoes quit buzzing. And that's the truth. And you're like, oh my gosh, what caused this? And the show I was telling you about on Travel Channel that I had there, I had my son and my wife with me. And whenever this thing came charging in after that right there, my wife is there. And all of a sudden she goes, do you hear that? And I said, no, what? She goes, that's right. Nothing. There's nothing. All the noise had just quit. It was a noise that you could, a quiet noise that you could feel. And that sounds crazy, but it's not. I mean, the evident alpha predator was in there, and the rest of the beings of the woods knew it,
Yeah.
I've experienced that a few times. It's so quiet, your ears start ringing.
Exactly.
It kind of makes me wonder if maybe they zap this stuff when there is a lot of commotion going on. Yeah.
I'll tell you another really neat thing about it is we've had this down on the Sulphur River.
Yeah, exactly.
We were traveling down the road beside the Sulphur River, and you'd have a spot where there was noise, and William was driving. I was sitting on the tailgate, and we got to a spot where there was no noise. And William, I remember you pointed that out to Cindy.
Yep, exactly right.
You knew that I was going to comment on it, and that's just really interesting to me. And I think that might go right along with what you're saying there, Chuck.
Exactly.
I think we might have a.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ben.
I was going to say, I think we might have a scientific explanation for this at this point, because the some of the stuff that they can do, that there's been clearly a lot of examples of them doing it, tends to aim toward that they have infrasound.
Right.
Exactly.
And they can emit and hear in higher ranges and lower ranges than we can emit sounds and hear in. And if they've got infrasound and they got like 3 vocal cords, they can go very high pitched too. They might have ultrasound. And if you think about how are they navigating in the pitch darkness without stepping on a twig and never making a sound. There's this guy called Bigfoot Anthropologist who has this channel where he takes recordings of people make out in the woods when there's Bigfoot nearby. And he goes through and does a sound analysis of them, where he extracts all normal known sounds until he's left with whatever's still there. And generally what he gets is a whole bunch of high-pitched clicks that sound exactly like a bat echolocating. So what they do is click, scan the area for like 30, 40 feet, get a nice 3D radar map of it. Now they can walk through it in the pitch black. Doesn't matter if there's light or not. They know where anything they're about to step on is. And then when they get to the edge of that perimeter, they do another click and they map the next spot they want to walk through. And we can't hear it. It's like a dog whistle.
Right.
Dogs can hear it. We can't hear it. And the same thing applies to insects. The insects all communicate with each other in the ultrasonic range. And if you wanted to do a nice ultrasonic dog whistle, which would frighten the hell out of all of them and make them shut up simultaneously, we wouldn't hear it.
Right.
Yeah.
And I just want to add this. I tried to test that to see whether or not it was my whistle that made them shut up in a different area. And it was just as loud in another area one morning, probably 4 o'clock. And I couldn't make anything get quiet with my whistle. So I'm convinced it was not me.
Duke's talking about that series of clicking. Folks, here's something interesting else that you can go to, man. I said, thank goodness I don't have much memory left, but what I do, I remember a lot of these old shows. And there was a guy that was on a show called That's Incredible. And he was blind. And he learned to ride a bicycle. And he couldn't see. I mean, he couldn't see. He's like, couldn't see anything. He was not just legally blind. He was blind. And he would ride this bicycle. And he could, through whatever abilities he had, his mind would echolocate that right there in a map inside, and he could ride through there and not hit anything. So y'all go through there if you got. I've got it on my Fire TV.
Yeah,
there.
they've literally got video of that guy tearing down a trail in the mountains, like mountain biking, S turns and stuff. Like, there's no way he could have done that if he wasn't echolocating. He would have died.
Yeah.
So
With the Infrasound, it's to jump back to Infrasound. Tim Storms, he was the bass singer at the Pierce Arrow Theater in Branson, Missouri. He's got the deepest voice in the world. And when he hits his low note, you cannot hear it. You can feel the vibration in the seat at the theater, but you cannot hear it. And he's a human.
I've heard of that.
Yeah. So
So getting to the topic of infrasound, Stephen, correct me if I'm wrong, you actually felt the effects of that once, didn't you?
Yes, I did in Oklahoma. We were Chuck, we would have been actually where this took place was between Hochatown and Smithfield.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know you're familiar with that. We were on the west side of the highway out there in the state forest.
I've actually experienced infrasound 3 different times. Once that hit me, and 2 other times to 2 people that were with me on a trip.
Yeah. With that experience there on that infrasound, there was another researcher out there, and he could basically just feel the presence of the Bigfoot. And I pointed to the area because when I pointed, what we could feel, was maybe a 2 or a 3. When I pointed, it went to a full-blown 10. And that researcher had never seen one, so I thought, well, maybe if I turn around, maybe it'll pop its head out, and they can get this sighting that they've been wanting. And when I turned around, I could feel the vibration from my shoulders to my hips. It was like being in front of a big speaker at a concert.
Yeah.
Just a constant vibration is what that was.
And something cool with the infrasound, if you can look it up on the internet there, and it'll tell you a whole lot more about it. But the military used to actually use infrasound to shoot over the ground, and they could actually locate enemy artillery that had been planted in through there from just this infrasound on there. So that's something that I didn't know, but it really the amounts of infrasound, it also can make you catatonic. You hear a lot of people saying, "Well, man, he was just there," then all of a sudden, he just disappeared. Well, he might have disappeared. I don't know. I haven't experienced that yet, but I know one thing I've seen with deer, but with Bigfoot, when they get there and they hit you with that catatonic experience, they did it to my buddy's wife one time, and she couldn't hardly move. But all of a sudden, whenever you get catatonic and you don't necessarily have the memory that you had, Bigfoot just turns around, walks off, taking his time, and then whenever your mind, quote, comes back to you, unquote, then all of a sudden he's gone. So is that something? Can it be both? It could be both. But I know for a fact that happens because it did it to my friend's wife. She started dry heaving like crazy. She couldn't think or have a cognitive thought. I went up there to help her, and man, all of a sudden my eyes just water just starts just pouring out of my eyes, and I'm not scared. I've actually got a pistol, and then this happens right there, and so and the sound, the smell, then it began to go after that. So again, this infrasound is something that's really real. It's not something we're talking about. Some of these guys say, "Oh well, you're just crazy." No. You experience it, see how crazy you are. I said, Stephen, it actually made Stephen sick. I had another friend that was up there squirrel hunting. It put him to his knees twice within a week. And he finally saw me at one of these Chevrolet dealerships. He goes, man, you still doing Bigfoot? And I said, he goes, can they do something to you to make you where you can't stand up and you get dizzy? I said, yeah. He on his family land that he had he was over 50 years old at the time. He said, I've never experienced it before with this area here twice in the same way. He said, and I had to go down to my knees, man. He said, I just couldn't stand up. So again, it's a very, very real thing, and it does affect our electric stuff. Duke's got a lady there that who was that Duke that put out the press plate there? So because they were zapping her camera, and so they buried the press plate. When the Bigfoot would step on it, it would get there.
Oh God, I can't even remember. That was a long time ago. Although I will say I've been lucky enough that I haven't been actually zapped. I have witnessed it at close range because I had Papa Craig up there on the same campsite I had William on. And right when it got light enough that we could go walk up the trail up the river and see where we were going, we went for a little hike, and he was right behind me. I mean, like literally 2 steps behind me. And all of a sudden he just dropped. And I turned around and I went, what happened? He goes, I don't know. I can't walk. I feel weird. I'm dizzy. Help me get back to camp. I was just like totally fine. They zapped him. And I got him back to camp. At first, he thought he was having a heart attack, but he had already had one of them, and it wasn't the same. So after a while, he figured out that wasn't what was happening. And I sat there with him for about another 15, 20 minutes, and he goes, I feel just weak. I can't walk. I've got no sense of balance, and I'm going to go lay down in my tent a little bit. Okay. So he went over to his tent, laid down. Well, everybody else is still sleeping. I'm the only person that's awake, and I've been up all night. So I'm sitting in my chair next to the no longer going campfire. The sun's starting to come up, and I fall asleep. And about an hour later, I wake up. I sense there's something right in front of me, and my head jerks up, and the deer that's eating grass about 10 feet in front of me panics and runs away. Because apparently I wasn't making enough noise to register that I was a living critter or anything until I jerked my head up and looked at him. He boogied off. And I noticed, well, the other guys weren't up yet, and Papa Craig was still in his tent. Well, now, about 4 or 5 hours later, when he got up and I asked him about it, I said, did you manage to get any sleep? And he goes, as bad as I felt, as soon as I got in that tent, I got hit by a wall of dread. All of a sudden, I was just terrified. I don't know what I was scared of. I was so scared I could hardly see or breathe or anything. And then I fell asleep.
Yeah.
And that's the 4th time I've heard that now. How in the hell could you be so scared you could barely breathe?
That's
and
right.
I fell asleep.
Yeah. That wall of dread. That's something I had no clue what it was. I've experienced this multiple times. I've been a hunter most of my life. And I used to do a lot of squirrel hunting. And there were times when I would be hunting squirrels and I would see a part of the woods that I think might be good to go into. And then you get to a certain point and it's just like you hit a wall. And whatever it is, it'll make you turn around and go back the way you came from.
Yep. And it's really stationary too, because I remember this when I was a kid. I walked into this one area that always gave me the creeps, and there was a game path that went in it. And I went, I'm going to walk in there a little ways and see where that game path goes. And as soon as I took one step into that area, wall of dread.
Yes.
So I reacted. I thought it was like there's a bear right there or something that I can't see. And subconsciously, my mind's telling me maybe I smelled it or something. You're about to get mugged by a bear. So I took a step back. Everything stopped. Then I took a step forward. Dread again. Took a step back. I mean, like there was a clear demarcation line where as soon as you stepped across it, dread. As soon as you step back, you're all fine again. Yeah. How in the hell does that happen?
That's the thing that's always blown my mind with the infrasound. See, it's just like with Chuck, you've been hit by it, and other people not hit by it. Mm-hmm. And with other people, they got hit. You didn't get hit. Duke, right. You didn't get hit. Papa Craig did.
Yeah.
And with the experience that I had in Oklahoma, to me, it was a vibration, but the person beside me said they felt pressure on their chest. We had two different experiences from one single experience, I guess. And that's
They can aim, a direct aim.
yes. And anytime governments, that was the problem why most governments abandoned their infrasound research, is because they couldn't direct it. It got everybody. It off.
Yeah, it's a nice area effect weapon, but they can't seem to aim it like Bigfoot can, apparently.
Exactly right. And talking about infrasound, y'all heard me. If y'all heard my story, my first sighting, when I told you I wanted to run. I'm looking at this thing. I wanted to run, and I was a good runner. I could not move. I mean, not just run. I could not move. And I'm sitting there, man, my face. I remember the first thing, just my eyes, like I said a while ago, just started watering down my face right there. I'm shaking. I'm how you get whenever you're crying and you're upset. And I didn't realize it until I finally got back to my truck. Whenever I finally got my senses about me, I was able to run back to where I was and got back to where my vehicle was. Folks, and I hate to even tell this on myself, but I had wet my britches. Now, I'm telling you, I was 17 years old and 6'2", 240 pounds, fixing to play college football. I was potty trained. Whatever it was at that time right there, it hit me so bad I couldn't run, but then I couldn't control my senses as well. And like I said, whenever I got back there then to my truck and actually had a little rag there and it was just almost so much water right there you could almost wring water from. So it's a very real thing that happens with Bigfoot. It's not just us, right here that are on that, saying those things, but it actually has happened to a bunch of people. And I've talked to them, and they'll ask the same thing, and there's no other explanation for it. The good Lord gave them a series of escape mechanisms, possibly, or other mechanisms to zap their prey, so that makes it easier for them to catch. I can't catch a deer, but I guarantee you Bigfoot can.
Yeah.
William.
Yeah.
On that particular event, do you think you got zapped?
Yes, I really do. Because like I said, I was a good miler. I could run a full 45 mile, but I guarantee you, when I was on the way down there, Chuck, there's about a 20-foot creek called 4 Mile Creek. I had to wade and tiptoe up there and everything. When I got back to 4 Mile Creek from this thing, after seeing this thing, and it wasn't even behind me, I was thinking it was, but I just kept looking back. I was able to jump over 4 Mile Creek, almost like a steeplechase, except I never got my feet wet. Basically took one big hop and went up on about a 3.5-foot bank right there where the creek cut through there. And I guarantee you that was probably the fastest. Of course, adrenaline could have had something to do it, but I guarantee you probably the fastest mile I've ever run. And whenever I went back to think about it, although I can look back at it now, I was sitting there. I'm like, gosh, I don't even remember, running, just getting here. I just remember running. I didn't have the real cognizant effort of the things that I was actually experiencing while I was running until I finally got back through. And I said, well, yeah, I remember making the turn there, and you crossed this gas line and went down the edge right there. I remember there was one piece of there was a piece of metal culvert right there. They had left it still in the middle of the road. It was about 2 feet across. To step on it and jump over. Again, I had to jump over that on the way back. Didn't remember it till I got back there. So I truly believe that he had zapped me right there. Now, I don't know to what extent. I think he knew that I was not a threat as far as that goes. He was, again, posturing towards me like, this is my territory. You don't want to come down here, right. And of course, he didn't know how true that was. I did not. But one of the guys there for one of the shows I did said, well, what do you think? He said, what kind of tree was that, that he was eating off of? And then I didn't know. And he said, well, do you reckon it could have been like a dog does whenever, they get sick and they eat grass? Well, I never thought about it. But, later on being a UPS man, I was able, after he asked me that was, I think 2013, I went to some of the nurseries that I delivered to and took the leaves. Me and my wife went, we finally found what some of the leaves were. We didn't have any of the buds on there. They had done gone out. We took the leaves and took it to some of these nurseries. I'm like, what is this? And they goes, yeah, this is called a rusty black haw viburnum tree. And it's like, it's a member of the honeysuckle family. It puts out a little bud right there and everything else like that. And they said, yes, that's, a lot of people use holistic medicine. They're using that, and it's used to treat menstrual problems with ladies. It's used to treat bowel problems, with people and things like that. It's also used to treat some headaches. And that guy asked me that question. I'm not going to call his name, but he asked me that question. I thought, man, that's a great insight. I never thought about it. All I could think was, well, gee, is that pit bull fixing to bite me? Has he been raised on your arena? I didn't care. I wanted out of there. But then once I sit there and begin to analyze it, there's the way it's done. Like I said, that may have been one of the protection mechanisms, the good Lord gave them that I'm talking about. And they do have it.
Mhm.
No, if you want to know, if you want the experts on the local plants medicine, it's Bigfoot.
Yep.
Another example of that is up from way up north where they've got a local hairy man that they call the gill yuck,
Yep.
which translates to the big man with the little hat.
Hmm.
They have they've had this legend that has been passed around for a long time, and they always kind of like, well, sometimes you can tell gill yuck's around because he'll take and eat the tops off the pine trees, not pine trees, birch trees. And so, the natives are just like, well, we've observed him doing this. We don't know why. So then you get the naturalist up there, and why would something want to eat the top off a birch tree? Well, because it's got a compound in it that's pretty much identical to aspirin.
Oh,
Well,
interesting.
Duke, here in Oklahoma and maybe down in Williams area, we have bodark trees here,
Nice.
and the bodark trees, every year they have a seed pod, and it looks like it's lime green, and it's about the size of a baseball or a softball. And me and a couple guys were walking down the trail, and this horse apple come flying through the air. That's what we call them, horse apples. Come flying through the air and hit a tree right in front of me and landed right at my feet. And I picked it up, turned it over, and there was a great big bite mark taken out of it.
Yes.
Now, for bodark trees or horse apples, my grandparents and my parents used to take those and stick them in their closets to keep insects away. And they used to tell us, don't touch that thing, don't bite it, don't do nothing with it because it's poisonous. And the more and more I thought about that after seeing that, and I've actually found them in several different locations where there was a big bite mark taken out of one of them. And I, for what it's worth, I kind of feel like maybe they're using it as some kind of insect repellent that they put on their hair.
Could easily be. There's examples of them using other things that are pungent and stinky that keep bugs away. Garlic. If you give them raw garlic, they'll rub that all over their hair to keep the mosquitoes and stuff off. Well, interesting story that came to me from Via Cat Hansen, that she was observing one of them. It had some skunk cabbage, and it had two rocks. It had a big flat rock and another rock, and it was mashing the skunk cabbage with one rock. And she was going, well, what the hell is it doing that for? So she went and talked to a horticulturist and went, hey, is skunk cabbage edible? And she said, no, we can't eat it. Well, why can't we eat it? Well, it's got these little glass-like strands in it. They're like fiberglass crystals, and they would just tear up your stomach really bad. And Kat said, well, what if you took it and like mashed all the crystals with a hammer or something like that? And she goes, well, I don't know that anybody's ever tried that. You might be able to eat it then.
Well, I've often told folks on some of the podcasts here that I've done, I think I've done on your show, Duke, as well. Around here, everywhere, truly everywhere, bar none, that I have seen Bigfoot, we have palmettos, growing from the ground. They're like them big old leaves and stuff like that. And I shared it on your show, and like I said, and you were able to tell me that, some of the medicinal values that it has, that evidently Bigfoot uses for either insect control, whether it's some kind of naturalized medicine that's good. The way we talk about eating things, there's things that we can eat, like my dogs can't eat. I've got 8 dogs. They can't eat chocolate. They can't eat raisins. They can't eat grapes. And garlic is actually not good for dogs. But like Duke said, garlic for Bigfoot. Oh man, using that to help keep the animals away. I actually do it whenever I'm fishing. Not a lot during the summertime. I'll actually take garlic pills, and it'll help keep the mosquitoes away. So.
Yep.
So those things are some things that we're still learning about. I'm anxious to, if we ever get to do learn anymore, actually get one. I don't necessarily want to have one in captivity. I certainly don't for torture or testing, but I would like to have one that we could see, to find out some of the mysteries that they have that not necessarily help us out. I just think they're just such a great being that when you see them, it's one of it's the eighth wonder of the world, but it's one of the greatest mysteries that the Lord's ever put here. Yeah. And how else could it not be with as long as human civilization's been around, and they haven't been classified yet they're 10 feet tall.